What's going on, guys? Check this out. This is Vinay from the Midnight Media, and I'm doing something here that I'm very excited about. This here is called The Midnight Show. This show has everything and anything to do with content creation, from travel photography to weddings and portraits and everything in between. With that being said, I got a really good friend of mine on the show tonight. His name is Jazz. We go back a few years, and we just get along in so many different ways, from photography to gear to traveling traveling things and planning our next trips together. Hopefully that's going to happen soon as well. But let's get right into it with the first episode on travel photography and how we prepare for a trip and what we bring with us. Jazz, thanks for being on the show, man. Good to see you here. Absolutely, man. How you been, man? What's new?
Been great. Life is good. Planning my next adventure.
Absolutely, man. I hear you, man. That's it.
And I think, thanks for having me. I think this is a great idea, and I'm excited to talk about what inspires me when I travel, how I plan my travel, what I bring with me when I travel.
Sure, man.
And I think I want to hear from you as well, because I want to be inspired.
Absolutely, man. Likewise, man. Thank you. That's awesome, man. I mean, like I said, this is something that I'm so pumped about, and I'm glad that this is the first episode. I think travel photography is one that people often get intimidated with, as far as what do we bring with us, and what kind of gear. Can we just take a cell phone? Do we have to spend all this money on extra equipment, and how to pack it properly, the bags, and all that great stuff. So, I mean, maybe we can educate some of our listeners and viewers today as to what we take, how we do things, and how we hit the road.
Absolutely. I think for me, the starting point for any of these trips is actually, finding a good flight deal and booking it, and then you start your planning right there. And I think that's where my inspiration comes from, is usually not knowing about where I'm going and then researching, using Google Maps and Apple Maps to scope out the city where I'm going to be, looking at travel blogs where people have been, and finding inspiration on the type of photography I want to do in a new place, whether it's landscape photography or street photography, or really diving into a culture, and really experiencing that. I think all those different things bring different types of inspiration, and that's really what it's all about, right? Every trip has to be different, and you can go back to the same place many, many, many times and discover something new every single time.
You know what? With that being said, one of my favorite photographers, Steve McCurry, I'm sure you know who Steve McCurry is, of course. He once said that he went to India, I think it was 60 times in his entire career, and every time he's come back to India, it was like he was there for the first time.
And that's the thing, right? Like, you can find inspiration anywhere. You can find it in your own backyard. I've really had no chance to travel Canada much, but I'm sure there's lots of inspiration here. That's somewhere I'd like to get out as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, with that being said, with how exciting travel photography can be, what is your favorite part? Like, what do you think is something that you strive for, or that drives you to plan your next trip? What's your favorite part of travel photography?
I think it's about learning from the things I shot last time and creating something new, and especially if it's a place I've never been before, if it's a different culture altogether. How do I capture the essence of that and bring it back, not just as a photograph, but hopefully a story to go along with it, to share. Recently I went to Turkey, and one thing I loved about that was just the people there are so warm, so hospitable, and meeting them, taking photos of them, sharing a story, and then bringing it back and then sharing that with someone else. I think that helps me inspire other people to go and travel and visit these places, and then you get to create a bond with someone. I think that's how you and I have discussed a lot of our trips, that we've never traveled together, unfortunately.
No, we haven't.
But we've been to a lot of the same places, and I think you and I see things through the same lens, and we've shared that. We've had those shared experiences even though we haven't been together. I think it's because of our love of different cultures and photography and creating great content that we can share with one another and appreciate.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I definitely can relate to that as well. I think my favorite part of travel photography is just getting lost in a new city, man. Like, I mean, I do this thing every now and then where I throw a dart on a map and I literally just go to where it lands. And some of the recent trips have been fantastic, from Morocco to India, Dallas, New York, Mexico. Just go somewhere, get lost, don't think about anything.
You gotta get better with your aim. You're just all over the map.
Just all over the place. You go from east to west and all over the place, man. But it just makes for such like amazing stories. And talking to locals is probably my most epic favorite part of anything having to do with travel photography is finding a stranger, talking to them, talking about the gear, the photography, what you're doing, where you're from, and then trying to see if they can get you to come inside and give you a cup of tea or something.
Yeah, and I think, along with that, you can face a lot of obstacles as well.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's the cultural boundaries, it's the language barrier, it's dealing with police and officials.
Yeah, security's a big one.
I think a lot of research, at least my research goes into that. It's just learning how to say please and thank you and hello in different languages. I think that goes a long way, and knowing if you should shake someone's hand or bow.
Yeah. And you know what? You bring up a good point with knowing how to say like please and thank you. And sometimes we really, we want to take a picture of like a local or something like that, and it's just good common sense practice to just courtesy, right? To ask them, can I take a picture before taking it? And if they say no, respect it and move on. And that's that, I know there's a lot of people have different opinions on it, but do ask them, be polite about it. If they say no, respect their privacy and all that great stuff, right? Some of the other obstacles I think that, we come across a lot as photographers is the tourists and how do we get around the whole Instagram touristy spots, because when we get there and we're trying to get this clean, epic picture, there's all these people in the way and they're trying to get their shot as well, and we understand that, but as a photographer, sometimes that can get a little bit of an obstacle.
I think I've, in recent months or years, tried to turn that on its head, where if I'm waiting for an entire tour group to pass, I take that as a moment where I'll put my camera down and actually just enjoy the scene. I think a lot of times we forget to do that. Yeah. So I take that time where a gigantic tour group with a guy on the flag is passing by. I'm going to just sit there and actually enjoy the scene.
No, I'm definitely guilty of. I know what you're talking about.
And when they're gone, then I'll take the photo. And you know what? If sometimes you miss a sunset or you miss a sunrise, so what? At least you got to enjoy it.
Absolutely.
I think it's, a lot of times we're really harsh on ourselves that when we don't get the photo that we wanted.
Yeah, it bothers us, but
right. But I think just enjoying the moment, I think, is more important.
I think that's definitely an obstacle that I have for sure when I'm traveling, and I often don't know how to enjoy the moment. I'm so lost in my gear and just making sure that everything's set up and the exposure's correct and like all the lenses are right and lighting is perfect. Where I wouldn't even be able to tell you what that place, the coffee guy beside me on the street, what his coffee smelled like, because I forgot to go and try that, or try some local street food, or just engage in the surroundings around me. Sometimes I don't know how to do that with being so engaged in my viewfinder and my camera all the time, and that's something that I definitely feel like I need to work on.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's it's an ongoing thing, right? Sometimes I won't even take a photo with my camera. I'll just quickly snap it with my phone and just put it away.
Yeah.
Because I've learned through missing so many of those moments, like you just said, that you have to just really enjoy that. Because what's the point of paying for a flight to go somewhere just to take a photo and to come back?
Yeah.
Right. You want to actually experience it. So
I
think that's very important.
Yeah, that's awesome. What are some of your pet peeves when you're traveling? What do you think gets in you, just pisses you off? I mean, there's those things that really make us happy and oh man, we got the shot, or I can't believe this location. But then there's those things with travel photography that's just oh my god, what the
I think I think Instagram culture has really killed a lot of travel photography for me, or just anywhere photography, because a lot of people just show up to a location, take a photo and walk away without actually even seeing where they were or experiencing it. I think that's a big pet peeve. I think a pet peeve I have myself is also sometimes getting lost in my camera and making sure that I got every angle of everything that I'm trying to shoot, when that makes me miss the moment that I'm sharing with the person I'm traveling with. Right. Sometimes being there with a friend or a loved one, I think being lost in your camera kind of takes away from that experience. So I think that's a pet peeve I have of myself that I think about later on sometimes. So that's what about you?
Oh my God, pet peeves while traveling. I mean, I think I learned this from India, to be honest with you, where India is such a grand place to capture. Sometimes even while being on the plane, I have this excitement in my head that okay, I'm gonna go to India and I'm gonna capture India, and that's it. I'm gonna come back with the most epic shots.
How many times did you say Steve McCurry went there?
60 times. I know. And Mr. McCurry, you're a great inspiration. But I'm always so excited, and then when I get there, and it's sometimes that excitement level isn't achieved because I try to capture everything all at once and not being able to enjoy the moment again. And sometimes with that, you miss the moment.
And I think we're harsh on ourselves, right? Like you're saying, like if you don't get the shot, there's no reason to beat yourself up about it.
Not at all.
You know, at least you got to enjoy that.
Come
moment.
back with an epic story, you know,
Exactly.
and that's it. I think I have more epic stories from India with having tea with strangers than coming back with, you know, epic pictures. But before we get into the gear, you just mentioned something about how you share pictures with your friends, and you know, you're not maybe so active on social media and stuff like that nowadays. And I think I'm kind of also trying to get away from that because it's just come such a. I don't feel like I want to display, you know, work on social media sometimes and. You know, anything like that. But how do you share your work? What are some of the ways that?
I mean, more often than not, the way I look at it is like I think my photos look better blown up as a print or on a bigger screen than they do on a little iPhone or an Android, right?
That's fair. That's fair.
So recently, I've been trying to get better with printing my work and actually commissioning that. Because I'd love to see my prints in people's homes and offices on the walls.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that's how I like to share my work. Or if I'm sitting with someone, and this is something that having the new iPad or having any iPad really has done, is it gives you a much bigger screen and a really beautiful screen to show your photos to someone with. And with the new updated Lightroom app, where you can actually bring your photos in quite easily, it's made that workflow a lot easier. So as I travel, I can take photos, and then from there I can share them. I can actually email them to someone or show them to the person that's sitting next to me on the plane. Like, this is what I'm editing.
Yeah, some of the best conversations I've ever had was just with the dude sitting beside me, watching me edit some of my pictures on, you know, on an airplane or a train or something like that. But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to be active on social media now as well, and trying to post a lot more and share a lot more. But I do feel that your pictures come to life when you print them. And you know, we're talking about screens and all that great stuff, but when you print a picture, it's the paper, man. The feel of the paper that brings it to life. You touch the textures, you can almost feel. Sometimes, like, depending on the print and how big it is, or even the environment, it feels like you're there. It feels like you're there, and that makes more for an epic story sometimes, and just a better overall experience. It's nice when someone comes over and they see a print that you've framed in your house, and they're like, "Oh wow, like that's amazing. Where did you get that? Who's the photographer?"
It makes a world of a difference, right?
It's awesome.
And that brings us down to, like, that's part of your gear, right? Like, having a printer is gear. Having these wonderful cameras is all gear.
Sending it to a lab, you know, who has the proper gear to get these things done. So, with that being said, I'm sure a lot of you guys have been waiting for this part of the show as well. Let's talk about gear, what we travel with, how we pack it, what we bring with us, what we don't bring with us, and all that wonderful stuff. So tell me about your main camera. What are you shooting with?
So this is everything. My main camera, my baby, is a Leica M10. It's, for those that don't know, Leica is a rangefinder system, which is a bit different than what you normally shoot with mirrorless cameras or DSLRs. I don't actually see through the lens. I see my entire view all the time, and then it helps me frame different things as they're maybe coming into view or moving out of view, or moving out of frame rather. What I love about this camera and the system, it's fully manual, so it naturally slows me down, and it's very, I want to say, unassuming and unobtrusive. So if I'm up close and personal and taking photo of somebody or of any scene, no one's really intimidated by this, and I'm very lucky to, you know, own one of these and shoot with it. And the photos, I mean, it's not really the camera, but they do have a certain look to them. The lens that I usually have on the camera is a 35mm, which is a perfect standard lens for really anything you want to do, like landscape, street photography, architecture, portraits. It works really well. I also have a 21mm Zeiss lens that I use, and also another, like, a 90mm lens, which is great for, again, I think all three of my lenses work well for street photography, landscapes, really whatever you want to do with them. Also, recently I've picked up a Voigtlander Bessa. This is the R2A, which is my film body, which actually works with all my current lenses that I use for my Leica system. So I don't have to, you know, buy a whole other set of lenses. This also has aperture priority mode, so if I don't want to go full manual, it does, you know, take care of a little bit of stuff for me. And it's just nice to start shooting film again. I learned to shoot film in high school, shot it as a kid, and it just helps you slow down and really enjoy the moment and make each one of those frames count.
Absolutely.
Beside that, I've recently picked up the Osmo Pocket. I know you have one here as well. I love this thing. The size of it is fantastic. And I have this rigged up with my iPhone and this Manfrotto Pixie stand, which is great for, you know, walking around, for vlogging or making hyperlapses. I think it's a fantastic system. It collapses into nothing.
Yeah.
And it works really well just by itself or with the iPhone.
Absolutely.
Beyond that, you know, notebook, pen, SD cards, some microfiber cloths, and my iPad. That is what I travel with. When I'm walking around a city, this is what goes with me because I try to keep my kit as light as possible. I still have all my options, and I go get and enjoy the moment.
Absolutely.
What do you travel with? I see you have a bunch of other different gear than me.
Yeah.
Talk to me about
honestly,
this.
man. I mean, I change my photography gear faster than I change my shoes. Sometimes, to be honest with you, I went from Canon to Nikon to Fuji to Sony to Olympus to Panasonic, and I've like everything else in between as well. And why not, right? Like, I mean, think of a camera like a car, or like, you know, whatever. Like, you don't drive one car your entire life, and I don't think I wanted to learn one system. You know, that being said, I often find myself coming back to a Fuji system. I personally shoot on the X-T3 when I travel with this, and it's usually paired with a 16 to 35 equivalent lens. I absolutely love this. For those of you guys who know Fuji, their color system is just absolutely.
Rave about it every time.
Yeah, I absolutely love the color system on the Fuji camera. I just can't seem to get away with it, or you know, away from it. But I also have a 50 millimeter lens as well, which is the
Standard,
50 f2. Great street photography
nifty
travel
50.
lens. Yeah, absolutely. I love this thing. This is arguably one of the most sharpest lenses ever made. It's lightweight. It's weather sealed. I can go anywhere I want with this. Moving forward, I have the 85 1.2. This is going to be my portrait lens. Sometimes, you know, I want to take pictures of locals and strangers and whatnot, and get involved in some sort of a conversation where I'm taking pictures of them. And that's usually the lens that I want to put on, you know, when I'm doing some portrait work. Like yourself, I used to actually shoot with the Pixie there, but I switched it over to this guy here. I found the legs on Amazon. I really like how much weight this thing can hold on to it. And then just a Manfrotto ball head on top of that. That gives me a little bit more versatility with some of the shots that I compose. Like yourself as well with the film cameras, this is actually a film camera that you gifted me.
It's the Practica?
Practica, yeah.
That thing's great.
So this has always been in my bag. I never really leave the house without this thing. I only shoot black and white film. I really haven't dabbled with color film yet.
I gotta use some color film.
Yeah, definitely. I want to try that out, but I'm a big black and white guy, so I absolutely love just shooting with this. And like you said, it slows us down and really,
it's
you know, helps you compose a shot. And you only have 24, 36 shots, and being able to slow down, I think, like how I mentioned before, where I don't get to enjoy a moment sometimes, this definitely helps me with that.
Exactly.
Where I slow down, I enjoy the moment, and I can sip on my coffee and see what the local pastry guy is up to and whatnot. Memory cards, this is the redundancy, guys. This is the redundancy. They're so cheap at this point that it doesn't make any sense for you not to have this in your bag. You know what I mean? Yeah. 30, 40 bucks gets you 64 gigs. Stack them up. And then just some common things, some wipes for the lenses, blowers, lens pens, things like that to clean the actual system. And then, of course, we both travel with iPads as well now.
Quickly, what's your go-to, like you're in the city, what's your go-to bag, like your walk around bag? What do you use?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, my go-to right now is the Peak Design Everyday Sling.
Okay.
I have the 5 liter, I have the 10 liter as well, and the 10 liter carries all of this, what you see here. I strap it over, I'm ready to go. It doesn't look like I'm carrying camera gear at all, and it's just very, you know, just close to me. It's very protective. I just absolutely love it.
Nice.
What about you?
I go between I have 2 Billigan bags, the Hadley Small and the Hadley Pro.
Nice.
If I want to carry my iPad, I go with the Pro. If I want just a very small compact thing, I go with that. And like you said, it doesn't look like a camera bag. It just looks like a shoulder bag.
Yeah.
It looks classic. It works with the camera. It works with the look I've got going here. So I just generally like the look of it. But yeah, man, that's I think for you and I have a very similar sense in how we try to keep our kit as lean as possible. I mean, sometimes we talk about, you know, not carrying too much gear or wanting to carry more, but
I mean, between you and I, we've had some amazing pictures traveling just with our iPhones, or you know, just our Pixel cameras or whatever. And I think as great as all this gear is,
doesn't
really,
matter.
it really doesn't matter, and that's something that I really want to try to emphasize on the Midnight Show with everything that we talk about, is that sometimes, guys, gear doesn't matter. It's really about composition and lighting and where you stand and how you experience that moment. Sometimes having stuff like this might actually add a lot more stress. Like you might not know how to use it, or
Exactly.
you know, things might go wrong. And having a phone in your pocket,
Or just
what was
takes-
that
or
quote?
just-
the best camera is the one that you have with
Exactly,
you. Or
and
something
sometimes
like
it
that.
just takes away from the moment, right? You don't want to have to fiddle with it. It's just
Absolutely.
be in the moment.
Yeah, man. That definitely that's happened a few times before, and you know, that's again where we're talking about not being able to enjoy the moment
Exactly.
and you know, all that great stuff. But with all this stuff being said, I think we definitely need to plan a trip together. It's something
do.
that we've talked about quite a few times, and we've talked about even more so this year. So I think it is going to happen.
It's happening this year.
Yeah,
We're going somewhere.
You know, there's talks about Japan, there's talks about India, somewhere in Europe.
We'll create some moments.
We're definitely gonna do something this year, I think, for sure.
Yeah, man.
But that being said, Jess, thanks so much for being on the show,
Thanks
man.
for having me.
Absolutely, man. I'm
loved
glad
it.
you're here.
And I look forward to being back and, you know, diving deeper into actual gear, or like how we edit. Like we have tons to talk about. We usually have long conversations,
long
so
conversations,
I'm
yeah.
glad we're doing this now.
Absolutely. We'll link all of our comments and descriptions and all that great stuff somewhere here, however this system works. This is completely brand new to us as well, so we'll leave all the contact details, the websites, and how you can get in touch with us as well. But give us some feedback if you guys liked what you saw, if you didn't like anything that you saw. If you want us to cover something on the show as well, let us know and we'll figure that out as well. But in the meantime, www.themidnightmedia.com. My name is Vinay. This is my good friend Jazz. And this is The Midnight Show, episode 1.
Thanks, everyone.
Peace. Take care.